Welcome back to our discussion on production and cost, which we started with the previous lecture, and we have already discussed about explicit cost, implicit cost, economic profit, etc. And we said that profit is equal to revenue minus cost, and this is obviously economic profit, and this is equal to P multiplied by Q, and this is economic cost. So this is economic cost. So in this module we will try to understand where does this Q come from, how do we determine Q, how much output will be produced, how is that determined, and basically production of any output. Like in the previous example we used the example of mangoes getting produced. So how much quantity of mango will be produced will be dependent on, or will be a function of lot of inputs. It is a function of amount of say raw material used, number of seeds used, amount of pesticide used, fertilizer used, etc., which will be probably the raw material. People working in the land, people working on the land, so labor. Then the land itself, the amount of land that is there available to grow the mangoes, so we can call that the capital. And if any machine is used, to whatever machine equipments used in that will be included in capital, and raw materials, etc. So these are the kinds of inputs which are going to produce the output. So output is basically a function of lot of inputs. Now from here the producer has to decide how much output he would like to produce, and before that he needs to know, he should know that a certain amount of labor, a certain amount of capital, a certain amount of materials together is going to give me a certain amount of output. So this knowledge is essential for a person to start production in the first place. So this is called the production function. So this is not how I explained it is not a definition of production function, but this is what we understand by production function. So production function shows the relationship between the quantities of inputs required to produce a quantity of output. And so this is our production function from here. And before I go on to another technical term called the marginal product. Marginal product is about any input, say marginal product of labor. So marginal product of any input is the increase in output resulting from an additional unit of that input, keeping all the inputs constant. So that is the marginal product of labor. But before I go on to marginal product, let me explain the concepts of production function, marginal product of labor, etc., through a very simple example. Let's take the example of a tailoring shop. Let's take the example, a very simple example of a tailoring shop, where basically there is a land, say there is a land of rather than land, say there is a room. There is a tailoring shop which is basically a room of 200 square feet area, and there are two sewing machines. There are two sewing machines in that shop. So the shop, so the room itself and the sewing machines, they would be inputs in the production of garments in the tailoring shop. So there is a room of say 200 square feet area, and say so this is one input. So these are the inputs. So there is a room, and this input has a, so every input has a cost. So when we wrote the production function in the first place, Q is a function of all these inputs, every input has a cost, and that is that cost is what is of concern, right? So so room is 200 square feet area, and it has a rent of say rupees 500. Okay, so whatever, like this is a flat amount of 500 that per week or month or whatever is paying. Secondly, there are two sewing machines. So there are two sewing machines, and the sewing machines, either they have been bought, say for example someone has borrowed the money to buy the sewing machine, or so basically you can imagine that for the sewing machine he has to pay say rupees 500, say 250 per sewing machine that he has to pay to whoever he has bought the machine from or borrowed the money to buy the machines from. So these are the costs. Now even before he purchases any cloth to produce garments, a tailor or a person who decides to start a tailoring shop, he is incurring these costs. He is incurring these costs. Now imagine he has engaged one person. Now he hires a tailor. Now he hires a tailor, or he hires a person. Okay, he hires one person. He hires one person, and say he pays him rupees 100 per day. So he pays him rupees 100 per day, and he hires this person who is going to stitch clothes for him. He is going to stitch garments for him, and so these are his inputs. And when this person comes, he starts. So let's ignore about the, let's not talk about the cloth etc. So imagine everything is included here, or so say this person is getting a amount of rupees 100 per day, and he is able to stitch. So now we are talking about Q. Next is we are talking about Q. So this person is able to stitch one garment per day. So when the person starts off with a shop, he has to incur the cost of this entire 200 square feet area of room for rupees 500. He has to pay for the two sewing machines, and then he hires a person, and he gets to gets an output of one garment per day. So since there is only one person, there is no way that he can increase the number of garments. So the only way he can increase his output is by hiring more people. So he can do this by hiring more people. So now in the same room with the same amount of sewing machines, let's say so now he has a fixed input of land plus sewing machine are his inputs, which are fixed. He cannot change that. Even if it does not produce any garments, he is having to pay for these. So say for example he is paying 1000 rupees for these. So let's not talk about this part right now. So number of people he is hiring is, say, first person, he is able to stitch one garment. Then he hires one more person, and as soon as there are two people there, say due to whatever reason, say the output increases to 3. Say for example this person really, like there is sharing of knowledge, two people are there, they are talking, so he feels more motivated and they produce more clothes. It's not that two people are there, two garments are getting stitched, so there is maybe sharing of knowledge or whatever, so little more number of garments are getting stitched here. Now say for example he hires 3 people. So then we see that the number of garments that are getting stitched is 6. So although there are 2 sewing machines, now maybe there is some division of labor. So 2 people are stitching on the sewing machines and the third person is helping with the, say, buttons, some amount of thread work, this, that. So basically the productivity increases and there is more amount of output getting produced here. Then he increases the number of people that he hires here to 4 and number of garments getting stitched is 8. Then say for example, so similarly he increases 5, 6, 7, 8 and for the 5th person that he hires, his number of garments increases by only 1 unit. So there is only additional unit that is getting stitched. When he hires the 6th person, he sees that the number of garments that is getting produced is not increasing, it's still the same. He is able to produce still 9 units of garments, and if he hires the 7th person, he actually produces 8 garments. So why am I giving the example in such a way that what is the reason behind output getting stagnated after certain amount of input addition and later actually decreasing? What is the reason behind that, or what is the intuition behind that? Now the intuition is usually what happens is, remember that the area of the room is still constant, it's still 200 square feet, and the number of sewing machines to work on, that is also same, that is only, there are only 2 sewing machines. So now if you keep on increasing the amount of clothes or number of people who can work there, they will be working with only 2 machines and in that land, in that amount of space only. So they will probably not be able to increase the output any further. And on the contrary, it may quite happen that since the room is getting very crowded, that there are too many people, and as they say that too many cooks spoil the broth. So similarly, too many tailors are probably creating a mess over here, and why the output is actually falling. So this is very highly possible. So this is a very possible outcome which the producers are quite aware of, and they know that the production, just by increasing the amount of input, there is only a limit to which you can increase the output, and beyond that you have to increase the other inputs as well if you want to keep on increasing the output. So in this situation, now if at this stage, if the person decides, the producer decides that I am going to increase the space of my shop, or better still I am going to add 1 more sewing machine, then again probably his output is again going to grow much more than this. So but since he is not doing this, so what we see is the additional output that the labor, the input called labor, is able to add, or the labor that is able to contribute, keeps on, after a point of time it keeps on decreasing. So initially it keeps on increasing as there is lot of fixed capital or fixed machineries to work with, and gradually it gets saturated, and later after a point of time the amount of output, additional output that is produced, it keeps on declining. So this is what happens. So then we are going to, so then what is marginal product that we are talking about? So marginal product is MP of any marginal product of any input diminishes as more and more units of the input are added, keeping other inputs constant. So here, coming back to this example, then what is the marginal product of any input? So what is the marginal product of the first input? So the first input that is added here, 1 unit of labor is been added, and what is the increase in output? 2. Now here again 1 unit of labor added, increased output is 3. So basically marginal product of labor is here, marginal product of labor is 2, here it is marginal product of, sorry, let me write it neatly. So from here to here marginal product of labor is 2, from here to here it is 3, from here to here it again falls to 2, from here to here it is 1, here to here it is 0, and here to here it is actually -1. So this is how marginal product keeps on, initially it increases, but then it keeps on diminishing. So this is called the diminishing marginal product. So this is called the diminishing marginal product, and so diminishing marginal product is the marginal product of an input declines as the quantity of the input increases, other things equal. So MP is very important to the producer in deciding if he should add an additional input for production. So you can very well figure out from here that a person who is deciding how many units of labor to hire to produce the amount of output, he is going to look at the marginal product. He is going to basically think at the margin. He is a rational person and he is going to think at the margin, and he is going to see that here if I produce initially, if I hire one person here, if I hire this person here, I am getting 2 additional number of garments. If I hire one more person, I get 3. If I hire yet one more person, I get a little less, but still it is positive. Still there is increase in the amount of output. So this is what he is going to consider. So before I move on to talking about costs or talking about his decision making process, let me also draw the diagram, what it looks like. So what does a production function basically look like? So the production function basically looks like, here is the number of units of labor. He is basically deciding, the producer is deciding whether to hire one more person or not. So say 1, 2, so here is the output that he is getting out of every additional hiring. So for the first person he gets 1 unit, for the second person he gets 3 units, for the third person he gets, sorry, let me extend it. So third person he gets 6 units, and then eight, 9, 9. So fourth person 8, then 9, then again 9, and then declining. So basically his production function basically looks like this. So production function looks like this, and what does the marginal product look like? Now, so this is the production function, and what is the marginal product? Firstly, the marginal product is the slope of this curve at every point. So this is the slope of the curve at different points, and we are going to see that the slope actually initially increases and then becomes constant and then decreases. So this is the slope of the curve, and if we plot the slope of the curve, we are going to see that it basically looks like this. So this is marginal product of labor, where you have labor on the x-axis and marginal product of labor which is basically units of output in units of output. So marginal product of labor curve looks like this. So coming back to the slides, what we were discussing, we said why is marginal product important? Why are we so concerned about trying to understand what marginal product of labor is? And the reason that we are interested in this is because the producer, while hiring the people, what he is the choice, he has to make a trade-off here. So what is he doing here? So basically now every person that he hires, and say it's a fixed amount of, he is paying an amount of 100 rupees per person. So every person that he hires, he is having to incur a cost of first one 100, second one 200, third person he has hired 300, 400. So he is having to incur these costs, and for every person that he hires, he is getting a marginal additional output of these units. So obviously while hiring, he is going to say, see, if I hire the next person, this is the amount of cost, additional cost that I have to incur, which is rupees 100 in this case, and the additional revenue that I can hope to get by hiring this person is basically this additional amount that is getting produced multiplied by the price. So this is the trade-off that he looks at. He knows that if I hire one more person, I'm going to get some additional output out of him, which is the marginal product of labor at that point, but I have to incur an additional cost of hiring this person, which is the wage that I am paying to this person. So if the amount of output gives me a revenue which is higher than the cost I am having to incur by hiring this person, I am going to hire this person. But if my production or if my revenue falls below that, I may not like to hire this person. The reason I said I may not like to hire, because there are other costs involved, other decisions involved. We are going to look at the output choice of a producer later when we actually do the market structures, but right now it suffices to know that marginal product is definitely important to understand, because the producer makes his choices at the margin, and he is going to look at his benefit and cost at the margin, that is additional benefit he gets by producing an additional unit of output from hiring another person, and the cost that he has to incur. So this is why MP is important to the producer in deciding if he should add an additional input for production. Now if he hires an additional labor, his cost rises by the wage he pays to the labor, and his output rises by marginal productivity of labor, and this is why it is important to understand. In the next module of this lecture, we are going to look at cost curves, and we are going to see, it will be basically a continuation of this discussion, and we will be able to see what the cost curves look like. And we are also going to talk about the fixed costs, which we have not spoken about in this module. We are going to talk about those also. Thank you.